Hello everybody, this is ManuS, back here with the next part of the artifact card by card set review for the first set, Call to Arms, today with the blue heroes, so let's dive right in. Okay, so first off we have Crystal Maiden. That's a bit of a contentious one, I would say. She gets a lot of flack for kind of being bad and everything, especially in Limited, but I think she's actually not half as bad as some people seem to think she is. Sure, her body is like barely existent. She's basically a melee creep with hero abilities and a signature card, but that's actually not that big of a deal. Usually you deploy her on the turn, not initially, especially because you can't really make use of her ability on turn 1 anyway, but on turn 2 is where it usually starts to become interesting, and if it doesn't matter much for your deck, you can even deploy her on the river if you don't have a better river deploy. Her ability is actually quite nice. It allows you, for example, to play 2 3-cost spells in one turn. Like, for example, it allows you to go double tower barrage on turn 2, for example, and stuff like that. So that is pretty nice, or lets you go, I don't know, compel plus something else, or foresight plus cunning plan and so on, just to name some in-color things. And the fact that her aura applies to any lane turns out to be quite a big boost and gives you a bunch of really nice options, often allowing you to play a cheap spell for free and then another unit, then a creep, for example. And that can be pretty strong. And that combined with the fact that her signature card is actually among the better signature cards. Dealing 2 damage is not that much. I kinda wish sometimes it would deal 3 damage, but then it might be a bit too good. To a unit, and it disarms the unit this round, further helping in protecting her, so her own signature card helps protect her from things, which is another nice plus. So yeah, I actually quite liked her in Limited as an additional blue hero. I think she's better than Jimui in Limited. In Constructed, not sure if she's gonna see any play, if there might be decks that abuse her, but her signature card and her aura are good enough that I could see that there at least might be a Constructed deck that wants to take advantage of this, even though there might probably right now not be any. So keep that in mind. I think the hero is actually quite solid. You just have to manage her properly because she is fragile. But the payoff is there. Next we have Earthshaker. That's another pretty solid one. 2/7 is pretty weak stats even for blue hero, because they usually have like at least 3 attack, but then again the difference between 2 and 3 is pretty low unless you're fighting heroes. Matters in some hero matchups, but against creeps 2 and 3 is basically the same, unless you are Luna or Zeus, where you have an additional way to deal the force damage. So yeah, body is not great, usually a river hero I would say. Ability is pretty strong. It stuns its enemy neighbors this round, so if you have initiative and facing one or multiple heroes, you can really lock the opponent out of a turn. This is active on turn 5, so when you have 7 mana, just at the right time for a lot of the high impact cards that you can shut down if you have initiative, so that is pretty nice. And then we have his signature card, Echo Slam. It deals damage to each enemy equal to the number of enemies. I found the card a bit clunky and situational, and especially if your opponent knows what you're up to and they know because it's a signature card and play around it properly, it's not that easy to get that much out of the card for how expensive it is. If the deck just doesn't go wide, or they avoid going too wide in any lane, or at least in a lane where you could have a blue hero, this is not that great. So in Limited I think it's okay, it's still better than Jimui, but kind of not much better than a Crystal Maiden if you ask me, since I actually think her signature card is probably a bit better, and yeah, he's probably like slightly above Crystal Maiden maybe in Limited, because he's still more durable and the ability is at least as good as Crystal Maiden's, just different. So yeah, a fine Limited pickup. Not sure if he's ever gonna make it in Constructed. My guess would be no. Signature card is just not good enough in Constructed. Way too specific, especially with people playing around it. And the ability is nice, but just doesn't make up for the lack of the rest of things. There's just too many better blue heroes that have similar roles. The thing with Crystal Maiden is that she's at least fairly unique at what she does, which gives her a shot of being useful and constructed, basically. Then we have Jimui, the Wise, blue's basic hero. Not great, but okay for a basic hero in blue, I would say. Basically a worse Ogre Magi in a way, since Ogre Magi draws you a card after 4 spells on average, which is a copy of one of these spells that you played, while this gives you a card every 4 turns guaranteed. So if you low roll with Ogre, Jimui can come out ahead, but Ogre has the potential to high roll, and you can also just play 4 spells in less than 4 turns with an Ogre Magi out, for example. You might also just not, so keep that in mind. And Ogre Magi has a terrific class card, signature card, while this has a very mediocre signature card. But it's not terrible, I think it's a decent signature card. I like it better than Keefi's and Farven's. It's probably worse than, but it is probably worse than No Accident. You get to choose a unit, choose a combat target for it. The important part is that it says unit, not allied unit. So it lets you redirect opponents to various things. It's just a very flexible, nice utility card that you can squeeze into a lot of turns and helps keep your fragile blue heroes alive or act as pseudo removal. And stat-wise, 3/8 is actually quite good for a blue hero. So I guess he's fine as a basic hero in limited. Not the worst basic hero, I think. In constructed, of course, basic heroes will never make it. Next we have Kana. Potentially the best blue hero, especially in constructed, but probably also in limited. She is 212, which is super durable for a blue hero. That's basically like defensive green or red hero stats. Like, keep in mind there are like red heroes that don't have that much better stats. Like for example, the 414 with Retaliate 2 is effectively a 614, and this is like a 212. But this one is red and a lot worse, so this is amazing stats. The ability can be a downside, but also, especially in constructed, can be taken advantage of, because you just have this one lane that is super aggressively pushing, where all your things go and you can count on it, takes away the RNG of melee creep spawns. And that is pretty exploitable, especially in constructed. But even in limited, this can turn out really well if your deck is planning for it. Then we have her signature card. That's where her real power lies. Summon a Hound of War for every damaged unit. This is the Hound of War. 2/1 unit. Not sure why this is. Oh, this is showing the melee creep because of her basic ability. Anyway, basically, since there's all these melee creeps going into her lane, that means her lane usually will have a lot of damaged things after some melee creeps fought each other, and then you can make a lot of Hounds of War and really overrun that lane. As soon as this makes like 4 Hound of War, the card is amazing. We all know how good Dimensional Portal is, and once you get like 4 Hound of War, this starts to be as good or better than Dimensional Portal. Sure, the Hounds are more fragile, so if you run into a lot of blockers, you might need a bit more than 4 to hit Dimensional Portal power level, especially when you're facing other 2-attack enemies. But all in all, card is really powerful, easily makes a lane run away with it, and with some help of Disciple of Nevermore, Oath, Mist of Avernus, Arm the Rebellion and that sort of stuff, Emissary of the Quorum, you can quickly deal 120 in Kana's lane. And there is multiple constructed decks trying to abuse this, one of the most prominent being the Emissary of the Quorum incarnation of Selemane combo deck in blue-green. So yeah, this is a staple in both formats. Next we have Doudna, another premium blue hero, especially in limited, one of the other blue heroes that you want to deploy on the flop, because she needs to be in play for her signature card to tick up. Her ability is that she deals 1 piercing damage to a random enemy and adds a charge to her to 3 random Eclipse cards in your hand or deck. I think that might have been reworded due to being able to have multiple Lunas in limited, so that at least not all your eclipses tick up by 2 each turn if you have both Lunas out. I think I saw earlier versions of this that just charged up your eclipse copies in the deck, so this might have been like a nerf to multiple Lunas in limited, because she's only an uncommon, so it's not unreasonable to see 2 of her in a draft and go completely nuts. And yeah, 3/8 is solid stats for a blue hero, and yeah, her signature card is amazing. You deal 3 piercing damage to a random enemy per charge. Keep in mind there is no base 3, so it's, if you have 4 charges, it deals 4 times 3 damage, unlike Chain Frost from Leech, which deals 3 plus the 7 charges, for example. And yeah, great card in limited bomb basically, and a great card in constructed potentially as well. That brings us to everyone's favorite Meepo. I think the card looks really amazing, but yeah, quality level wise the card is not that great, but I honestly don't have a strong opinion on how good the card is in the end. A lot of people think he's bad, but who knows, it's a card that has high upside and high risk and might not be that easily to abuse and understand, so there's potential for maybe someone doing some cool stuff with him and breaking him somehow, like in constructed, and maybe even finding good uses for him in limited, since continuous effect is that he has soulbound, which means if Meepo dies, other allied Meepos in every lane also die, but he also has an active ability called Poof that he can use every 2 turns. You can move him to an allied Meepo's lane, so they can kind of group up, and you deal 2 damage to the new enemy neighbors in that lane, which is nice. So that helps kind of mitigate his downside a bit, because you can move him out of danger and you can move him into spots where other Meepos might be in danger, and then his ability kind of just kills the board. I have not yet played with him in limited, but I will probably pick him in the future just to try him, because he seems like a lot of fun and he might be better than you think. And yeah, and then his signature card is basically you summon a Meepo, so that means you get a whole lot of them. So per Meepo you usually get up to 4, and then they can really just bounce around the board. So you usually need to draw the first divided we stand to even get use out of his ability, because you need a second Meepo to teleport to. I don't think you can use his ability on himself on his own lane just to deal 2 damage to his enemy neighbors. That seems like it would be a bit too strong to abuse. But yeah, a bunch of Meepos teleporting around and wreaking havoc sounds like a lot of fun, and I'll definitely try it in limited in the future. So don't count this one out just yet. Give it a try, see if you can make it work and how good it turns out. This is pretty layered and complex and tricky card that could be better than it looks. But yeah, you don't see it in limited that often because it's a rare. Next we have Ogre Magi, a very solid blue hero, especially for limited. 3/7 is decent stats for blue, a bit weaker than say Luna, lacks additional health, and his multicast ability gives you a 25% chance on every blue spell that you play in his lane to be copied, and yeah, you get the copy in your hand, you don't play the copy right away, but it's basically, yeah, drawing a quarter of a spell, of a blue spell if you play a blue spell in this turn, which is decent. Not insane though. So it's a solid limited hero, would put him on a similar level as like First Shaker or slightly above, but not a premium blue hero. But his signature card is really great, especially in limited, dealing 1 piercing damage to each enemy before the action phase in the lane, 3 cost improvement, so you can slam it out on the first turn right away for value, and the card can make a lane really stingy for an opponent to be in and kind of push them out of a lane, or just keep a lane in check from pushing too much. So yeah, very solid hero. Also interesting for constructed because the signature card is good. The ability is even better when you only play premium blue spells in constructed. And the stats, well, you will have to protect him a bit. Next we have Outworld Devorah, one of the worst blue heroes, if not... Actually, yeah, it's the worst blue hero by a large margin, if you ask me. 4/6 is interesting stats kind of for blue hero, because it beats melee creeps, unlike almost everyone else, in one hit. But yeah, comes with the 6 health of all the small blue heroes, which is pretty problematic against most heroes other than opposing blue and most green heroes. So against like red and black, just immediately dead. His ability is basically a bad version of Crystal Maiden's ability. After you play a blue card, there's 50% chance to restore 2 mana. So it on average gives you 1 mana back for every blue card, but only in his lane. The upside is you also get it back for non-spells, like for improvement and creeps. But yeah, if you want this type of ability, just play Maiden. She's a million times better, and her body being weaker doesn't matter enough. Especially because his signature card is not very good too. Astral Imprisonment, we all know these type of ghost form effects from Magic. That's kind of a typical Richard Garfield type effect, I would say, because he already used this similar things in Magic, basically disabling a creature and at the same time disabling a creature offensively and at the same time making it damage immune, basically. So yeah, you stun a unit this round, give that unit damage immunity this round. It's a bit better here because it also disables the unit, the hero, from playing spells. So it's effectively a potentially better version of Rix's signature card, because it costs 4 and kind of also silences it and is also usable to prevent something from dying, but on the downside you cannot kill it either. It's just, yeah, a pretty bad card, and being a bit better than Rix is nothing to be proud of, so yeah, terrible card. Next we have Prelex. That's actually a pretty nice hero. I really like her in Limited. Initially I thought she might be too bad because of her 3/5 stats, making it really hard to deploy her, but kind of need to protect your blue heroes anyway, so you just want to draft these cunning plans and compels and stuff like that and ventriloquies to keep your blue heroes alive early on, and then you can even deploy Prelex on the first turn. Usually if you have better heroes, you just deploy her on the turn, skip one free melee creep from her, but make her safer and make sure she goes into the lane where you want the effect the most. But yeah, if you have enough protection, it's fine to just deploy her on the flop. You don't have strictly better options. And her ability makes the lane run away pretty quickly, potentially. She's similar to Venomancer, potentially slightly worse than Venomancer, I would say, since he's a bit more durable and his Spitelings might be a bit better and so Venom than her ability and signature card, but she's still very good. I've quite liked her in Limited so far in blue-green and had some good 5/0 runs with her. And I can also see her being interesting in constructed in the right decks. Her signature card is Barracks, basically adding her continuous effect to a lane of your choice. You summon a melee creep into the lane that is improved each deployment phase. So another card that really makes you take over a lane. Pretty nice in Limited, might be a bit slow in constructed. Next we have Skywrath Mage, another premium blue hero, 3/6, not greatest stats, but we are used to that from blue. He makes up for his lag in attack with his ability, so he can still effectively deal 5 damage to an opponent if need be, like he can trade with a Debbie, for example, which is not bad. And it also sets up his ability nicely. It gives a hero and its allied neighbors -2 armor this round, and then you can just blow them up with Mystic Flare, one of the more powerful blue high-end spells that kind of let you catch up from behind, because you're usually behind early on with blue, and then on turn 6, 7 you catch back up with powerful spells like Mystic Flare, Eclipse, Thunder God's Wrath and so on. Keep in mind, on a single target this deals 12 damage. If you use it on a leftmost or rightmost unit that only has one allied neighbor, it deals 6 to both. And if you use it like on something with two allied neighbors, it deals 4 to each. So easy math to shortcut in your head to check where you want to use it and what you can kill with it. Pretty powerful card. Definitely a high pick in limited. Not quite as good as, say, Luna, Kana, and Zeus, probably, but like right behind them. Somewhere between low tier premium pick or high tier, like second class blue heroes, basically. Still within like the top 5 blue heroes in limited, and might even be playable in constructed, but not sure. Like the Mystic Flare might be a bit too weak in constructed overall, and it's a bit more of a nice value thing for limited, I think. Then we have Venomancer, pretty powerful hero, easily takes over lane. You get a Plague Ward, not Venom Spitling, my bad. Summon a Plague Ward into his lane, so it's basically like Prelex except with a different kind of creep. Has 1 more health instead of 1 more attack, which is preferable because the difference between 2 and 3 is not that big, especially when there's no additional damage involved, and then having 1 more health means survive a couple more things, which can be the difference of at least 1 turn, and their 1 turn in turn might and save it, heal it, whatever. Signature card gives you 2 more Plague Wards for 4 power, being similarly strong as Dimensional Portal, slightly worse probably, but the Plague Wards are a hell of a card and can really outshine melee creeps. It is a bit less aggressive and a bit more board control-y than Dimensional Portal, but a really powerful card. Yeah, and Plague Wards are 1/3 creeps that before the action phase deal 2 piercing damage to a random enemy neighbor of themselves. So yeah, this is a great limited pick. Probably the other top 5, top 6 blue hero together with like Skywrath Mage and the 3 premium heroes, and then probably followed by Prelex in something. And in constructed, I think this is also very interesting and playable for token type, go wide strategies with Mist of Avernus, Emissary, maybe Armed Rebellion. If you're not looking to combo the opponent with Incarnation of Salamane, but go more for like an aggressive mid-rangey kind of strategy, Venomancer seems pretty good there. He really just kinda does his lane by himself and doesn't need a whole lot of help. And last but not least, we have Zeus. Pretty good stats for a blue hero, especially given that he has a way to deal the force damage to a melee creep, meaning he can one-shot creeps effectively, because if you play a blue spell, it deals 1 piercing damage to its enemy neighbors, which can get out of hand quickly. Like if you play 2 spells, that means his allied neighbor melee creeps also survive the enemy melee creeps on the other side, which is pretty strong. And his signature card is a beast, Thunder God's Wrath. It's 4 piercing damage to each enemy hero in all lanes. Particularly insane if you can play 2 in 1 turn, either in the first and the second lane consecutively, or in 1 lane with Satyr Magician or Aghanim Sanctum to completely blow up the entire enemy heroes and just set them so far behind that you usually can win the game, especially in constructed. In limited, I have actually come back from full board wipes of Thunder God's Wrath multiple times in one. So it really depends on what else they are doing. But yeah, it's a really powerful card and you can set it up, you can also play around it. Initiative is very important to get it out. A lot to play with and against this card, and definitely a limited bomb and a constructed staple. Yeah, that's it again for the blue heroes. If you have any questions or disagree with me in some way or want some further elaboration, let me know in the comments. Also, just let me know in the comments what you think of the series, what I could do to improve it, what you would like to see in the future, and so on. Always happy to get feedback and improve the content for you guys, or make new forms of content that you guys are looking for. And drop a like if you enjoyed the video to help the video reach more people. And if you want to further support this kind of content, just make sure to turn off your ad block, whitelist YouTube to support the free content with ads. You can also follow me on social media over here and on Twitch if you want to catch me live streaming Artifact and other games, other card games mainly. And yeah, that's it again for today. This was the Artifact set review with the blue heroes. I'm your host ManuS. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with the black heroes. Bye.